Therefore, prepare your minds for action. Keep sober in spirit and fix your hope completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to former lusts, which were yours in ignorance. But like the Holy One who called you, be holy yourselves also in all of your behaviors.
So last week, we were all up, or at least a large amount of us were up at Yosemite Bible Camp for our annual week up there, and I wanted to give a little bit of a report about Bible Camp and then make some lessons off of what we kind of did up there. But since this is a big work that we're engaged in as a congregation, I think it's important to talk about it as we're all gathered here together. That's our official camp picture up there on the screen. I know it's kind of hard to make it out from where you're at, but we had a really good-sized group up there this year. I jotted down some points about Bible Camp. Our camp is hosted by us. We're the overseeing congregation of it, but it is supported by staff and churches all over. It's really a big partnership to make it happen. Although, you know, it's our name on it. It's not just our work. So many churches, so many different staff members from all over make this camp happen and donate toward making it happen as well. Our attendance was about 145. Back in that camp picture, it's probably about 150 right there. That was one of our big days where some people from coming in all at the same time. But 145 was about the average attendance up there this week, which was bigger than last year. We've grown. We've grown especially with bringing in more kids, which is awesome. Have a new partnership with the Bright Angel Church of Christ in Las Vegas that brought a van full of kids too. And I'm actually going to be going out there and speaking Labor Day weekend, and we're going to be taking a group to their youth rally most likely in November. So I'm excited about that partnership there. So building these relationships, growing our camp, helping out the kids. It's totally awesome. This week, or last week up at camp, we had 3 baptisms, which is always great. We want to see people brought to Jesus Christ. That was awesome. Leland Vossler from the Porterville area, Caillou Venata from Hanford, and Samuel Meyer also from the Hanford-Lemoore area were all baptized up there at Bible Camp, which is great. I'm sure we'll see some more growth from that as we go on. Although we have a lot of fun activities up there at camp, like games and sports and all that, the emphasis of camp, as always, is the spiritual activities, and we have a lot of those daily activities. We have 2 worship sessions a day up there at camp, 2 Bible class sessions, 1 devotional each night. So there's all those activities. There's numerous Bible conversations taking place every week at camp. Many people rededicate themselves to Jesus while they're up there. There's kind of a moment where you realize, hey, I've been slacking off. I haven't been as dedicated as I should be. And many people, spend time in prayer and rededication to Jesus while they're up there. And I would say that this is probably the most impactful work that we are engaged in. So many people are brought to Jesus from Bible camp. Many of the staff that we have up there at camp came to camp as campers. Many of the preachers that were up there at Bible camp became preachers because of Bible camp. So it is an awesome work that we are engaged in. And I kind of listed down what are some of the things that I think are the best things about our camp. So here's Cliff's 3 points that I saw this week that I think made our camp awesome. Number 1, we have a kind, welcoming, and inclusive environment. Here's what I mean by that. Our camp brings in kids from all over, and many of those kids in certain situations might not be as welcomed in. Maybe they don't fit in at school. Maybe they're not in the in crowd. What I see from our campers up there at camp is every kid, even the ones that might be a little awkward or might not be the ones that are up there on the stage, are all welcomed and all included in everything. And it's totally awesome to see how everybody applauds one another. They cheer for one another. Even if what they're doing is kind of dorky, they still get a lot of claps and cheers. And I really think it's awesome to see how people show that love of Christ while they're up there. The church is supposed to be a place where people from all backgrounds can come together and feel loved and supported. And I see that up there at camp. And I'm always impressed by that. Number 2, I think what makes our particular camp so impactful is we have a very knowledgeable staff. All of our high school classes are taught by people with formal Bible training that are well-versed in teaching and preaching and leading classes. And I think that makes for a really deep Bible study. And because of that, our campers are very inquisitive. All during the week, you'll see staff members sitting around a picnic table with campers, and they're asking them Bible questions, deep Bible questions, not questions like, can I get away with something, but questions like, I heard one at one table was, hey, how come God did make the tree of good and evil, or knowledge of good and evil? That's a deep question. You don't think that's answered in just 5 minutes, right? We're hearing a lot of those deep Bible questions. And what I also think is so awesome is the universal involvement I see from everybody up there. Everybody, all the campers is involved in everything. It's cool at camp to participate. So even if it's a dorky activity that involves something goofy, they all get involved in it, and they're all hyping it up. And when you have that kind of environment where everybody's hyping everybody else and everybody's involved, it makes for a very, very good time. But our theme this year up there at camp is the same as our congregational theme. It was be holy. Just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all that you do. And that's what we emphasize every day up there at camp, that need to be holy. But as you leave camp, there's a sign on the gate that says, take Jesus with you. That's a handsome model up there, isn't it? But take Jesus with you. And the whole idea is, while you're up there at camp, yes, you get this spiritual high because you're away from everything. You don't have your cell phones on you. You're up there in nature. You're worshiping every day. And you're with a whole bunch of people that also want to go to heaven. So it makes it pretty easy while you're up there to be all about Jesus. But what about when you leave and you head down the mountain and start heading home? That's where it kind of gets a little bit more difficult. I had the privilege this week of being involved in teaching some of these kids right up here on the screen. That's our junior high class. That's not the entire class. Those are the ones that were nominated for Camper of the Week. You might see some faces you recognize. By the way, Hannah and Gwen both have to share the trophy for junior high girl Camper of the Week because they both got equal number of votes. That's how awesome our kids are, by the way. They can't decide of who's the best camper up there. But I was teaching the junior high class. And in the junior high class, we together on coming up with 10 ways to stay holy when you leave camp. Because we talked about up at camp, it's easy. When you go home, it's hard. And we kind of talked about some tips for staying holy all the time. And we went over these 10 tips. I'm not going to give you a 10-point sermon this morning, but the 5 that stood out the most, I do want to share with us this morning, and then the lesson is going to be yours, because this goes for us too. Whether you went to camp or not, it's easy to be holy when you're around other holy people, right? When you're in a church building like this and you're worshiping God, it's like, okay, I can follow Jesus. But what about when you get in your car and you're driving down Caldwell to head to El Pollo Loco and someone cuts you off? What about when you go to work on Monday and your coworker's kind of a jerk or your boss is kind of mean? What about when you sit on your couch this afternoon and turn on the TV and you see a whole bunch of stuff that maybe you shouldn't be seeing? Or you pull out your phone and you start doing that infinite doom scrolling thing we all do. What about when you're a kid that's been up at camp all week and then summertime happens, then you go back to school in August? You used to say back to school in September. Now you say back to school in August. What do you do to stay holy all the time? I'm going to give you 5 points this morning. If you're in my class, Gwen and Hannah, you already know these points because we talked about these. But number 1, if you want to stay holy all the time, number 1, always make sure you're following Jesus and not the crowd. You might be thinking, well, that seems kind of juvenile, Cliff. Yeah, I did teach this to the junior high class, but this relates to all of us too. Paul, in his letter to the church in Rome, after spending 11 chapters talking about how Jew and Gentile are all equally sinful, all equally need Jesus, and are all equally saved the same way, he talks about presenting your bodies a living sacrifice in verse 1. And then in verse 2, the Apostle Paul tells the Christians in Rome, and he tells us today as well, do not conform. The world has one pattern. They have one way of doing something. You go against it. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind, he says. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. We always talk to the kids about, don't give in to peer pressure, don't give in to peer pressure. Well, I'm 44 now. There's still peer pressure. Yeah, maybe I don't have people tell me, you're not cool unless you do this. But you know what I see? What other people have and I want it. What other people get to do and I want to do it. How other people live, I want to live their lives. And I feel a certain pressure to be like everybody else. I don't think that goes away, apparently. As you get older, you still have that pressure to conform. Maybe you conform in your speech. Maybe you conform in your beliefs. The world believes one way. You're like, well, I guess I should believe that way too. If you want to stay holy all the time, not just when you're in a church building and not just when you're at Bible camp, you need to make sure that you're following Jesus and not the crowd. And you have to ask, why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing it because I feel like the world expects me to? Or am I doing it because Jesus wants me to? This lesson is not just for young people, that's for us too. If we want to be holy all the time, we can't be conformed to this world. We're supposed to be different. It should be obvious that we're Christians by how we talk, how we carry ourselves, how we treat other people, how we dress, how we engage in our community, what we're doing by good deeds and good works, how we love. Follow Jesus, not the crowd. That's number one. By the way, if you're taking notes, you should put 1 through 5. We're going to be covering those this morning. Number 1, follow Jesus, not the crowd. Number 2, might seem simple in understanding but hard to practice. Think about good things. After Paul's been talking to the Philippian church and trying to get them to not be selfish, because he gives a bunch of examples. He talks about being like himself, having the mind of Jesus, being like Timothy, being like Epaphroditus, and making sure that you're living your life in an unselfish way. They're still bitter. They're still not getting along like they should. And here's what Paul tells them in Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. He says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent and praiseworthy, think about such things." If you want to live a holy life, make sure your mind is focused on good things. I don't know if you're like me, but I get kind of caught up in my own thoughts. I get angry about certain things, and then I stew on those things, and then I kind of get bitter about them. I'll start obsessing about something. Lately, I've been really annoyed with how brown the grass is here at the church. You're like, why are you talking about that, Cliff? Because I'm like, how come no one else sees it as brown? And then I get bitter. How come no church members change that sprinkler head? Now, I'm not picking on you for not changing sprinkler heads, but I'm telling you the Cliff Sabro thought process here. I'm like, am I the only one that sees the sprinkler heads that need to be replaced? That's how my mind goes. And then I get bitter, and then I start thinking bitter thoughts, and then I get angry, and I get over here. Or then other times I start thinking about what other people have that I don't have, and I think, I should have that. I'm better than them, which none of us are better than anybody, right? But we get those thoughts, and we get negative. Or maybe it's you, maybe it's anxiety in your life. You start worrying about things, and you stress about things, and it consumes you, and you can't sleep, and you worry, and you get stressed, and then the stress builds upon the stress, and then you get stressed out about the stress. Is that you? Or maybe it's you thinking about things you can't control, the future, about what you're going to do, or your aging, or your health, or things that are outside of your power. And you start thinking about those. Or maybe you turn on the news and you see the conflict's not over yet in Iran. We still haven't had a deal. Or there's this crime over here. Or there's poverty over there. And you look at it, it just consumes you. Or maybe it's politics. Maybe your side versus that side aren't getting along. And you're not getting along. And you begin to see everybody as someone who's against you. They don't think the way I think. Therefore, they're not as good, not as holy, not as righteous as I am. We start thinking about those things. Bitterness. Anger. What does Paul say? Paul says, whatever is noble, think about that. Whatever is right, think about that. Whatever is lovely. In context, he's going to right after this talk about false teaching. Dwell upon good teaching, not false teaching. If you want to be holy, think about good things. Don't let your mind take you to the dark places, to the anger, to the bitterness, to the worry, to the stress. Think about the things that are good, and that'll help you be holy. Notice what he says. Think about such things. If you find your mind bringing you away from Jesus, come back to these things here and dwell on them, and that'll help you be holy. Because all those other things, you know what they lead to? They lead to sin. Number 3, run away from temptation. Now, this was a fun one. Every time I talked about this in Bible class, Devin Roberts, who's Chris Roberts' son, illustrated this for me. I'd say, Devin, run away, and he'd dart off into the woods. I thought it was funny, and then he'd run back and say, like, guys, that's what we got to do. Every time there's temptation in front of us, we need to flee it. We need to get away from it. He's talking to the young preacher Timothy here in 2 Timothy chapter 2. Timothy's discouraged. The church in Ephesus has been kind of butting heads with him. They haven't been following his teaching. Timothy's getting kind of timid, and here's what Paul tells the young preacher Timothy to do. He says, flee the evil desires of youth. Because in context, they're fighting, they're getting caught up in all this controversial teaching and arguing for the sake of arguing and all of that. He says, flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. You know, it's silly. We always talk about this with kids, with teenagers and stuff like, all right, if you're in a situation and things are bad and someone's tempting you with something, run out of there. That goes for us too as adults. We're not any stronger, okay? Those same things that probably tempted us back then in different forms tempt us now. We need to make sure those things that tempt us aren't in our life, that we get away from them. If you're tempted to lust when you're watching certain things or on your phone or on your computer, turn it off. Get rid of it. Put on filtration software or something. Flee that temptation. If your temptation is some kind of a substance to try to get you to forget your problems, don't go to places where they sell it. Don't have it into your house, and get away from the people that participate in that. Flee temptation. Run away from temptation, and it will help you be holy. There's things out there that suck us in. Let's push those things away and make sure that we're not around them. That's number 3. Number 4, way to help you be holy even in an unholy world. Because again, it's easy in here, it's harder out there. Number 4, when we're out there in the world, when we're engaging in conversation with people, when we're interacting with others, be kind and forgiving. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31, after he talks about, the unity we have in the church and how we have those different ones, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, how God has gifted all of us in different ways to serve the church. As he wraps up this section, he says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling, and slander. That sounds like the high school boys' cabin a little bit sometimes, but that was a joke. They're actually great guys. But along with every form of malice, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving one another, just as in Christ God forgave you. The reason we struggle with being holy is, I think, because we struggle with this right here. But the more we can embody the character of Jesus, the easier it is to be like Jesus. So when we're talking to people, if we're kind, that'll help us be like Jesus, and it builds on itself. You'll be more like your Lord. If someone does something wrong against you and they apologize, you forgive them. You move on, you let it go. Even on the cross said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. We should have that kind of an attitude. Let's not be bitter, angry people who are butting heads with other people that look at each other with malice and hatred and contempt, which it's easy to do. When you get bitter, when you get angry, you begin to view other people as the enemy, not as people they are created in the image of God. This morning, when I got to the church building, I had to reel in my own thoughts a little bit, because when I got here, I realized that someone had been fidgeting with the faucet outside, which there's some people in our neighborhood here that don't have places to live, and they come in, they mess with the faucets, and then they break the handles off, and then it floods things, which isn't good. Obviously, vandalism is bad and all of that. But I was really kind of had a contempt in my mind for this. I'm like, these homeless people are messing this up. They're messing this up. They're flooding this. They're messing up the sidewalk here. It's going to go underneath the wall. And I was really, really angry about this. And then my thoughts were taking me like in places like I'm viewing people, humanity, people that God has created with contempt. I shouldn't do that. Yeah, I'm upset that things were vandalized. Yeah, I'm upset that there's, a big muddy mess that might damage our property that, God's blessed us with anyway, and then all of that. But I shouldn't view people with contempt. I shouldn't have hatred and anger, but I had to kind of take a moment and go, calm down, Cliff. What you're thinking is wrong. You know what I mean? You could be upset about the vandalism and still not. You shouldn't be, view people with contempt and malice. I should be kind. I should be forgiving. I should be loving. I should get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, but instead forgive as Christ has. When we're not forgiving, when we're not kind, we're probably not being as holy as we could be. That's number 4. And then finally, number 5, tip for making sure that we're living holy lives. Number 5, spend time with God every day. In that passage you were familiar with, the pray without ceasing passage, let's break it down a little bit more, expand a couple more verses. In 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 16, as he wraps up this letter to the church in Thessalonica, after telling them to get ready because Jesus is going to come again one day, and the way you're going to be ready for Jesus to come again is rejoice always, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances. Notice the active terminology here. You have always, continually, all circumstances. That means all the time we should be engaged in activities that draw us closer to God. Spend time with God every day. And this is the danger of a compartmentalized Christianity. I really, really, really fear, myself included, our Christianity is only wrapped up in this 1 hour on Sunday. This is the time we spend with God. And you'll see that because that's why all we ever talk about is what happens in this 1 hour in the church building at this one moment. Not what happens 99.9% of the rest of the time. And it's that 99.9% of the rest of the time where our Christianity really matters the most. Are we spending time with God every day? Are we constantly engaged in conversation with Him? Are we constantly listening to what He's trying to tell us? Are we constantly praising Him and worshiping Him and honoring Him and meditating upon His Word and reading the sacred text? Or are we just going about our business and then, okay, I got it in on Sunday? If you want to be holy all the time and all that you do, spend time with God every single day. And not just every day, but almost all the time, every day. We talked about this with the kids in my Bible class. Many of them have cell phones and they have like group chats, okay? That's where everybody of your friend group is in this one chat. You probably have something like that with your family or something. And then you kind of just, you talk to one another. I know the kids from camp, they'll have the camp group chat. And then over here, there'll be the Boys Cabin 7 group chat. And over here, it's, this little friend group chat. And what happens is the conversation never ends. There isn't a formal, all right, now we've ended the conversation. It's, we'll pick back up whenever someone messages something. Our conversation with God needs to be that continual group chat where we're always just engaged in that conversation, where it never ends, and we spend time with Him every single day. And if we do that, it'll help us be holy, even when the rest of the world out there isn't. Our theme this year up there at camp was be holy. Just as He who called you is holy, so be holy in all that you do. Apparently I said be holy a lot up there at Bible camp too, because Fiona dressed up as me and pretended to be a bald guy on stage telling everybody to be holy. But it's a good teaching. Be holy all the time. But like I said, that's easy to do when you're at a church camp. That's easy to do when you're in a worship gathering like this. It's easy to do when you're with other people with the same goals. But what about the rest of the time? What about when you're around people that don't share that same passion for Jesus? What about when you're engaged in your daily life with people that don't have that same desire as you? That's where it becomes more difficult, but that's where it becomes real. But the command is still the same. In all that you do. Yeah, but what about at school? In all that you do. What about when my kids are making me upset? In all that you do. What about when my marriage is having problems? In all that you do. What about when someone upsets me and makes me mad? In all that you do. What about when I'm tired and the coffee isn't working and I haven't got my post-Bible camp nap? In all that you do. We're supposed to be holy. I hope those 5 tips help you this morning. Go back over that list this week. Think about those, dwell upon those things, and I promise you, if you put those into practice, you'll have an easier time being holy. And it's not because you're doing anything special yourself, but what you're doing is embodying the character, nature, attitude, and actions of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And the more we can align ourselves with Him, the Holy One, the more holy we can be. The lesson is yours. We're going to sing a song here in just a moment. It'll be on the screen behind me. If there's any way we can help, you can come forward now. As together we stand and as we sing.